Hi, Diane. How are you?
I am great. How are you, Wendy?
Good, good. I'm so excited that you are here, and I'm super excited for our conversation on vision.
Yeah,
And
me
I
too.
just want to let everyone know why we're talking about this. So, as many of you know, I go around and I speak to many people from students to CEOs to C-suites. And one common theme that has been coming up in all of my talks is vision. Many people, doesn't matter how young, how old, if they're just starting their career, if they're very advanced in their career, a lot of people don't know what their vision is. And who better to come and talk to us about vision? Diane is a Vision Accelerator. I mean, there's no better person to really talk about this topic and really give us some nuggets and talk about the importance of vision. So before we get started, Diane, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Awesome. Well, it's so funny, Wendy. I actually have been doing this for longer than I recognize. I am a counselor by trade. And I thought that I started my desire to be a counselor when I started my master's degree. And then I ran into someone a couple summers ago, and we were in eighth grade together. And he always used to say, "You're my counselor." And I just laughed because I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm really a counselor and a coach." And so, really, from a young age, just had the gift of listening to people, and being able to hear what they're not saying and synthesizing what it means and what their passions are just by that careful ear. And so, that's kind of how it manifested over time. And I think that that's why I love having these conversations with people, to have them to realize that vision isn't, we don't just get one vision. Sometimes it comes to us multiple times, sometimes because we're not listening and perhaps not acting in what we're called to do. And so that's what really makes me excited about the work that I do, having that opportunity to talk to people, and hear where their gifting is, and then how they will be able to step into that, or perhaps pivot if they're in a space of feeling like they're stuck. But I think it's really neat to be able to have those conversations. So that's kind of how I got started and certified, and really have used it in a lot of things that I've done over my career. So it just makes it exciting.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think you're the right person because, like you said, you've been doing it for so long. And I call that your true gift. Like, that's our gift. Our gift is not what we went to school for necessarily. Our gift is what we bring to whatever we do. It doesn't come with a certification. It doesn't come with initials behind your name. It's that thing that you can't, it's the intangible thing you can't really put words to. So I love that you're is it eighth grade, you said? Eighth grade friend?
Yeah, eighth grade, we were in
Yeah.
middle school together, and he's like, "My counselor." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh," like in that moment, it hit me. And I literally used to be like, "All right, do you want a session tonight?" And I would have all my little friends signing up to talk to me about who they're dating or what, was going on. But it just made me laugh that, I did do social work as a major undergrad, and then counseling for my master's degree. But it wasn't until a while after that I realized that I really am about futuristically. That space is kind of where I always, okay, so that happened, but what, is our next intention as it relates to what you want to do? So even though, like you said, the degree was in, it prepared me, but it prepared me with all the other things that I had always wanted to do and was doing. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And Diane, can you tell us what's the definition of vision and why is it important?
So vision is really important because it's your rudder, like giving you direction for what you are going to do. And so I often, when I'm working with my clients, say, you wouldn't jump in your car and say, "I'm going to New York City," and not turn on your GPS or not pull up the address that you're going to. And so vision is that same thing, just having a concept, an idea of what you're forging for to do, and then just getting really clear about the steps that you need to take to manifest that.
I love that, because one thing I always say is that, I'm the stress solution strategist. I focus on stress management and emotional intelligence. And when we are stressed, sometimes we can't have the clarity, or we don't have the clarity to see straight or to revisit our vision, right? Because sometimes, we have it at the beginning of the year when we're doing our vision board parties. We're very clear on the vision, but quarter two, we forgot about the vision.
Or 30 months, 30 days in.
Yeah. Yes, yes. And especially, people who are in their careers and doing the things and have the titles are just so bogged down. And I think vision is so important because you have to reevaluate yourself. And I think you said at the beginning, it can change. Like, are you on track? Are you on track? Because we evolve as we grow and we experience things. And like, I think people need to dial in and kind of revisit their vision.
Absolutely. And I think with that, it's being honest, why are you not maybe hitting the benchmarks that you wanted to hit? And then, I always say that the best investment you can make in yourself is coaching or self-development, because if we could figure it out, we would have already. And so sometimes having that outside perspective to be able to help give direction. And I'm a coach and I still hire a coach, and so I practice what I preach, in terms of there's always a next level and there's always something more. And if you're talking to someone and they're acting as if they arrived, I always say that's the time to run, because we're all on a journey, right? And, I think it's really important to look at where you are and look at where you want to be, and then look at the steps and maybe what is it, a personal self-sabotage. In my program specifically, we have something called the dreamer and the doubter. And our dreamer is, stressblueprint.com is going to be everywhere. You're going to be hitting all the benchmarks that you want. And then the doubter is, maybe I should just be a mom and not follow my dream, right? Like, so everyone has this dreamer that's like telling you you can knock down all the walls and make it all happen. But it's really important to also tap into your doubter, because the two of them go hand in hand. And sometimes you don't know who's going to show up on a particular day. And so it's nice to know their voices so that you don't get stuck in self-sabotage.
Oh, I love that. I love that. What are some things you found in your work as a coach and social worker? What prevents people from revisiting their vision?
What prevents them from?
Yeah, what are some obstacles that kind of get in the way? Because January 1st, everyone's excited. Everyone has a vision board. Everyone knows the thing. Everyone's in the gym. They're doing the thing. What comes up that prevents them? Like they just lose track. They're off
I
track.
think time management is a big piece. I think that a lot of times people have vision for something that they want to do, but then they don't have the clarity around the goal. So then, if you don't have the clarity around the goal, so yes, I want to lose, 50 pounds by June 15th, but if I'm not committing to going to the gym 3 to 4 times a week and doing an hour worth of work at that, I'm not going to hit that goal. So then the frustration happens because the clarity isn't there. So then we don't make the time. Because then the reality is we all have the same amount of time. And there's some people that are wildly successful, and then there are others that may feel like they're staying in the same place. It's really the decisions that we make as it relates to how we're going to manage and govern our time. And that connects back to discipline. So if you kind of look at that, and oftentimes that's a conversation that I like to have. What's your relationship with discipline? Would you say, what would be your rating that you would give yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being highly disciplined and 1 being, I got a lot of work to do? And then how do you deal with confrontation? Because if you're being told that you said, because sometimes some of this work is holding the mirror, and I always say, sometimes when we select friends or family members that we love, We know who to call when we want to make an excuse. You don't call the person that has good discipline that's going to say, you should have got that together, Wendy, because you said that on January 1st. We call the person that we also know they tapped out on their goals. So they're like, girl, I know you were busy. You didn't have time.
That's
You know,
right. That's right.
so, I often say that's why it's important to have that culture, to have someone, in your life to be that mirror to really push you forward towards the things that you say that you want to accomplish. So I would say time is definitely a big deterrent. And I think that sneaky self-sabotage is a huge piece. Sometimes that imposter syndrome can feel like, you might want to do or be something, but then feel like you aren't in the space to be able to do that, based off of the way that you're seeing yourself, or maybe the fear of what you think you may lose if you become this CEO, or if you become this high powered person, that maybe there wouldn't be space or love. So then that self-sabotage can have you to say, okay, well, maybe I don't really want that because I feel like I'm going to lose this. So all of those things are important conversations to have, as we look at what we want to accomplish. And I think that everyone's route is different. And so that's why it's not a one size fits all. Sometimes in the program, you may have someone who's really good at setting an intention, but then their struggle may come up, in the 6th week when they're realizing that they're having a difficult time with failure, or that they always have been successful, right? Like, so kind of being able to tap into what each specific person has as a barrier. But we all have something that can make us have a stumbling block. I think the important part is to be able to take it apart, to be able to put the pieces together to move towards manifestation and success.
Oh, I love that. And while you're talking, I'm like, you need a coach. You need your coach. The coach is your person. So it's
Hmm.
definitely your person. And I know like the coaching industry has like taken off recently, and
Hmm.
people are everyone's a coach now.
Yes. Yeah.
Everybody, whether they certified or they're not certified. But I think it's important to find your person, and more importantly, find your community. I think community is so important when you're trying to make a shift in your life, because sometimes we try to do different in the same environment, and
Hmm.
it just really doesn't work. So I love what you're doing, because for me, vision is your compass. Like that's like you said, it gives you that roadmap where you're going. And I was just blown away that really that senior leaders who like are running, profitable, these expensive they don't know what their vision is. I was just so blown away by that. And I commend them for being courageous to raise their hand and say, I don't know. I just don't
Well,
know.
I think the struggle sometimes too is when you hit a certain level of accomplishment and you are the person that people go to for answers and direction. um, you almost feel sometimes like you can't have someone that you go to for answers and direction. And I
Mhm.
think that that becomes a lonely place. Again, when we talk about, dreamer and doubter, then that becomes that like, am I weak? And then that's the voice of the doubter, right? That would make you feel like you can't go and reach out to another person to get that support, even though everyone needs that support, right? And so it's often that's something that happens often at that leadership level, and it's sad because they have so much skill and ability, but just need to take that corner and get that additional support to be even more fabulous. But sometimes it's difficult because that judgment, and I think, and sometimes that self-judgment of like, I'm not sure that I can do this. But I think that it's important to, like you said, find someone who is a good fit for you. Tap into resources that the person may offer, do some trial runs, some initial one-on-one meetings to see if that person is your coach and how that feeling, feels in that moment. Because I think, again, being a woman, and sometimes I have to change my analogies talking, but you don't go in the store and find the perfect pair of jeans or the perfect bra. You kind of have to try on a few. And I think the same lies in for counselors, for coaches, to really have those meetings, have those conversations, have some questions, maybe ask. We all have a divine intelligence. And when I think about vision, I often like to talk about that. It's what babies have. When you see a baby and they're like not connected to a person, they have something inside of them that's telling them, this is a good person. Like their aura is good and you're connecting with them. And then sometimes the baby, and then we as adults can say, oh no, go to auntie, whoever, or go to this person. And the baby's like, ah. And it's something that just is not aligning. As we get older, sometimes what happens is that we separate from that intuitive knowing. And so what I like to say is that if you're looking at connecting with a coach or connecting with somebody and you feel like your doubter has been running high, maybe ask yourself for some sort of sign, some sort of something that's going to bring you peace in a way when you have that conversation that, okay, that feels good. Like that feels like someone, maybe sharing something that maybe you have felt uncomfortable sharing, and seeing what that person offers you in that consultation time might be wow, that's worth the price of admission. Like, because now that person has given me insight on something that I had been struggling with. And that means that if I go ahead and do more work with them, I'm going to get more from it. And maybe having a couple of those meetings so then you can compare. Any coach that's trying to like have you to jump on with them right away is usually a coach that's just trying to fill their practice and not serve you. And so I think that's, as a consumer, that's also something to be mindful of. It's about your betterment. It's about you really getting what you're looking to get, and about you doing the work also, right? But I think it goes hand in hand. You can't have someone who has their own ulterior motive and then you're not committed to having picking the right person, because then it's just a disaster and you're just setting yourself up. But if you're really focused on enough is enough, I'm ready to live the life that I was created to live. I'm ready to show up and rise up into the person that I'm supposed to be. And I want to talk to someone and have them to help me to stay accountable until I walk in those shoes and feel what it feels like to be in that space. That's the coaching relationship, right? That's vision at its best, because anything that you want to have, do, or be, you have the power to do that. And, it's just a matter of really just breaking it down and believing that you can have it. And then you look back and you're like, wow, I'm here. And
Yeah.
I've had so many clients that, they're like, can you help me do that? And I said, I can help you. You just got to do the work. And I'll be here cheering you on and kicking you in the butt at the same time and, making it happen. But I think that, again, you have to really be committed, and both parties have to be committed.
Yes. Yes. Diane, what are some things like I know getting a coach and being in a community, all that is very, very, very important to your point. But what is some inner work that people can do? So people that are listening, they may be like, oh, I don't really know what my vision is. What's some inner work that they can do kind of on their own before they take the next step to explore coaching?
I think that, it's really important, when you think about vision, is what you say to yourself. What are you thinking for yourself? And for me, sometimes that leads me to affirmations. When I think about work, inner work, that needs to take place, you sometimes self-talk is the worst talk. Sometimes things that we are saying to ourselves are things that we wouldn't say to a friend. We wouldn't say, to our inner child, but we're saying it. And so really being able to reprogram and spend some time with yourself. And I always tell people, like, work it in when you're brushing your teeth, you know, when you are taking a shower, you can be saying your affirmations then. You don't have to wake up 30 minutes before, because people are always, I'm busy, I'm so, my day starts and I'm just going. But there are functional things that we all have to do to start our day. And we can kind of incorporate those positive things in to that. So I often say, I love I'm fit, firm, and muscular, for your, saying that in the morning makes me go, okay, I gotta get to the gym. I have to do things to create that fit, firm, and muscular body. I'm living my perfect peace. That allows me to make sure that my space is honoring the peace that I desire to have, right? If you're not in a relationship that's honoring you, saying that I am enough and my perfect partner will love me for all of the things that I am, right? So anything that you want to work on, we have to do the inner work. There's an African proverb that I love, and it says, um, the enemy outside. If there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. And so that always, just says to me that we have to do the work with the enemy that might be trying to creep within us, because then once we take care of our own stuff, there's nothing outside of us that can harm us.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, inner work is so important. I love affirmations because for me, it's rewiring your brain, right? So your mindset shifts, your thoughts, which then goes to your behaviors, how you operate in the world. Many times we're not saying affirmations, but those negative thoughts, that negative self-talk that we're not saying out loud still impacts how we behave. So important. And I'm a big journaler. I love to journal.
Absolutely. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Taking in additional information with YouTube,
Yes.
doing things that kind of settles your brain if people are really busy, and just like, maybe coloring, or there's coloring you can do on your phone, because sometimes people, don't want to get crayons or get colored pencils, but you can do it on the phone with your finger. There's apps for that. Maybe it's word puzzles. Like, I think anything that you can do to just slow yourself down is really, really key, so that you get a chance to think. And everybody has different ways of winding down, to be able to tap into what's next and what's good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I have a couple of additional questions. So, our audience, we have, nurses, we have healthcare professionals. We all went to school. Well, that's why I met you, right? I met
Right.
Diane many years ago at St. Joseph College.
I know. They got a whole new
Um,
name, right?
yes, yes, yes.
Look, and men.
Yeah, totally different now.
Right.
But like going to school for nursing, very stressful, right? But we're
Mhm.
we're just chasing that dream of becoming a nurse. We get out, we take our NCLEX. I'm speaking for everyone in general because usually people who are successful, many of them have degrees and they go through this this journey of getting to
Mhm.
where they want to be. So you take the NCLEX, you get your license, your degree, your stamp, your initials, and then you go out into the workforce and you're working. Um, how can those people kind of pivot? So as a nurse or as a healthcare professional, you're working, you're taking care of patients, you're just in it, you made it. How can you pivot from that to say, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? This is very stressful. I'm in it. But is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this really the vision I have for my life? I went to nursing school many, many years ago, right?
Mhm.
Is this what I'm supposed to be doing now today? Because you said something at the very beginning that your vision can change.
Mhm.
And I guess what I'm asking is, can you give people permission to change their vision, change the trajectory of their lives?
Absolutely. Like, I don't necessarily think that because we do one thing, we have to continue in that vein. Sometimes you may be a wonderful nurse, and that was something that you were supposed to do to get particular information because you're supposed to go and follow another path, maybe in a whole nother field. Maybe you're going to be an amazing psychologist because you really have a great understanding of the body, or maybe you're going to go and do something else in a school that has nothing to do with nursing. Maybe you're going to be an English teacher because you always like writing, from when you were a child. But, something said, oh, go do nursing because you're going to make money, or,
Mm.
that's a better field. You'll, have a job, but you're volunteering at an organization that you're part of and created a great poetry group that excites you. And I think sometimes in our lives we have things that we love, and then we have other things that maybe may be our majors, or things that we feel that we were told, guided, maybe we just enjoyed the class, but we picked that as a major. I think even when I I spent years working in colleges, but I often laugh looking back. College students can't make decisions for themselves usually. They're not allowed to be out late. So I just think back to all of the people that either weren't able to stay in college because they made bad decisions, or they stayed and they made it through, but perhaps because of that guidance and that, while it was good, but directives on like, you should be doing this, and they didn't get a chance themselves to say, this is what I want to do. So I
Mhm.
say all of that to say sometimes people do end up in jobs that I wanted to make my mom proud. I wanted to do this because that was my dad's dream. And then you get to be 30 and you're like, I don't want to do this. And
Right.
it's cool, don't do it. Because I always say your passion um, will be followed by profit.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
like, it's really important to work in your passion and the profit will show up. And people sometimes get stuck into, I'm going to have to go back to school. I encourage people to listen to podcasts. I know for a stint, I listened to people that were following their passion, and just like stories of how one lawyer just was like, I'm not going to he was a very well-established criminal lawyer, and had all these cases, and he was just like, I'm gonna cut my practice off, and I'm just gonna meet with clients and work with people that I enjoy. And he was like, that's what I'm gonna do. If I don't like it, I'm not taking it. And his accountant ended up calling him like halfway through the year, like, hey, what are we gonna do with all this money? Because he had served so many more people because he was working in what he wanted to do. It's just classic, like, so sometimes, again, to me, that's our saboteur that gets us to feel like we have to stay. Oh, I don't want to let this person down, I don't want to let myself down, how am I going to pay my bills? And I'm not saying quit your job and go jump, and be irresponsible. Don't come looking for me for I watched this podcast with Wendy and the girls that do it. But I'm saying that I feel sometimes we can get stuck, and
Mm.
we need to be intentional with looking at what really gives us that feeling of joy, and then chase that like nothing else.
Mm.
Because you're going to feel good. If
Yeah.
you're waking up and you don't like that job and that's not where you want to be, yes, you're there, you're existing, and you're doing the people's work.
Mhm.
But don't you want to do your work, the reason why you were created? I always think about how hard, and as a science person, it's hard to make it onto this planet.
Mhm.
Just the creation of who you are and how that all came to be the whole time that you grew in your mother's womb. And then to make it onto this life plane through birth, it's not an easy task. So you really came out winning. And then now we have to figure out how to keep winning while we're living. And that means that we really have to tap into what's our joy. And I
Yeah.
think we all have a distinct, unique purpose for why we're here. And sometimes people go, I don't know my purpose. But then that's where I would say you have to like fish around,
Mhm.
to what really makes you happy, right? And like, I don't think that that means that you do have to go to school. Sometimes I laugh now as a person who worked in higher ed and, working with high school students now, sometimes I'm like, maybe college is not for you,
Right,
but what
right.
do you love doing? Because I don't connect. You get a lot of debt being in college.
Oh,
Is
for
there
sure.
something that you do like no other that you could create a living and a joy doing by serving the world?
Mhm.
So that's the greater question, right? Like, so I think, so sometimes I find students will kind of gravitate towards me because they're like, this is a different conversation. Like,
Oh,
what
yeah.
do you really love? Like what class do you go to and it's easy for you to get a grade? Or what space do you thrive in?
Mhm.
And if it's lunch, I talk to them about hospitality and like, culinary arts, like, because everybody doesn't thrive at lunch. Like there's
Right,
some people who that's the worst part of their day because
right.
they have to interface with people. It's noisy. It's right. So like I think sometimes we're so fixated on that, like sometimes it could be sports, but it doesn't mean that you're gonna be a football player or basketball player. But there's agents, there's managers, there's other roles. So I think sometimes we need to think collectively about all of the roles that people play, and then what role will that be for us. If you fry that chicken. If you
You
are
get
a
the best fried chicken, right?
right, like that's gonna have. I have a person. I just drove 40 minutes to pick up a cake last week because her cakes are good.
Right, right.
Right? So it's just like when you decide what your niche is and what you want to follow, then run with it. Because then people are going to say, hey, did you talk to that Wendy about your stress? Because I'm feeling better, right? Have her into your organization. I just think that whatever our calling is, it's really important that we tap into it because that's how we align our vision. And then it becomes easier when you're fighting against it, then that's what makes it hard. Like life shouldn't be hard, right? And sometimes that's what we may have heard, but when you are doing I'm not saying that all days are going to be easy, but it should feel good because you know what you're going towards.
Right.
That rudder is saying, okay, this was a hard left. I know I got to go back right to get back on the strip, but I'm willing to do that because I know my end goal.
Yeah, absolutely. You said you dropped so many gems there. And I'm so happy you said purpose. You're talking about passion. Like, wait, where's purpose? Purpose, purpose. Because such a big purpose person. And your purpose is getting quiet and you'll figure it out. It's there, you have it, it's ingrained in you. And one thing I always tell people is that self-awareness is key, but you got to get quiet and give yourself time and space to really explore who you are, what lights you up. I always give the example of when I'm with an oncology patient, that feeling I get, it's indescribable. So I know my purpose is to serve patients in some capacity. Um, but yeah, it's really understanding who you are, why you're here, and what impact you want to have on this world. And that may sound like crazy to people, but that's what it is. And I
Mhm.
think what you said, vision is it comes from it, but it's all linked, the passion, the purpose, the vision, it's all linked, but we have to give ourselves the time and space to really explore what that is.
Mhm.
And are we on track, or do we need to create a different roadmap? And I think that's, why what you do is so important as the Vision Accelerator. I love that. And I have one more question before we wrap up and get to our rapid fire. So what can organizations, because every organization you go to, you work at, you pull up their website, they have mission and vision on there, right? And right now we're talking about individual vision. What's your vision? What's your vision? How can organizations incorporate vision into like their employees? How can they make that an essential part of the culture of employees tapping into their vision? How can we do that? Can we get some nuggets on how organizations or leaders can start really tapping into the vision of their employees?
I think by giving space to even talk about it is key. I think sometimes it's even reconnecting. I think sometimes we have meetings for the purpose of having meetings at in workplaces. But how about we start a meeting sharing the vision of the organization, but then asking people, what's your vision for this month? What's your vision for why are you here as a part of our vision, and how can we help you to manifest and move your vision forward? I think that so many times it's so polar opposite, like I think I worked with a manager um one time, and his staff had been there for years, and I was just really struck, and he was like frustrated, like I need to move on. My thing was, wow, like what are you doing that is having people to believe in you and your leadership, that they're giving 10, 15 years of their life, in this place? you know Many of them could have been making more money, could have been doing other things, uh, but they were committed to him, and they were committed to the vision of what their group was. And I think, you know, I think that speaks to our leadership, and I think what I liked with his story, he started at the bottom as an entry level, and then was running the entire organization at that particular site. And I think other people saw that it was possible, right? That they could be. And I think sometimes, we're so busy trying to get to the top. But sometimes I always say your leadership is only as good as your legacy. And if you pour into other people, the likelihood is that they will pour into you and help to like, so it's a reciprocal
Mhm.
piece. And I think when I think about companies, when people are unhappy, the question should be, where are we with our vision, and how can we get people locked into the vision and support them so that we can all be collectively successful? Because once you get that negative energy in the organization, it festers. The water cooler talk is, oh, we here again, like it's just negative. And a lot of times when people are negative, they're not happy, and they're not connected to what is their next. When you're connected to your vision and you put those stops in that you have to hit, you don't have time for gossip. You don't have time to, not be your best, be it in talk and how you show up and how you feel, because you know that all of it is interconnected. When you don't feel good about where you're going, you don't show up on time.
Right.
Perhaps you don't come. So you see absenteeism as an issue in jobs, right? Like, so it's all interconnected. So oftentimes when I have conversations with the companies and groups that I've had chance to talk about vision, they're always like, oh, I never put right. Like, who wants to show up?
Right.
Who wants to stay in a place that doesn't feel good? How often do you celebrate?
Mhm.
People say, oh, that's a waste, that productivity, but you get more when people feel like their presence is acknowledged, that they are celebrated, um, and that it makes a difference that they're there.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's important for healthcare leaders, senior leadership, C-suite to really value vision, to understand their vision, because they're leading organizations of people.
Hmm.
So if I don't know my vision and I'm not taking it serious, how can I even help you uncover yours or tap into
Precisely.
yours
Yeah.
or dial into the company's vision? Like,
Hmm.
so I think it's so important. It goes hand in hand. And this was such a great conversation. And
It was.
we'll definitely have to have a part two. But before we get to rapid fire, how can people connect with you and find you?
Sure. So I am at DianeDrakes.com. And then I'm on Instagram, Diane M. Drakes. And then I'm on Facebook at Dream Big with Diane. And my website is easy because it's DianeDrakes.com. And so, and then my number is also, I try to make that easy, is 860-515-TEAM. So I always joke like you can remember that, 860-515-TEAM, and that's 8326. But I hope that everyone, I always say that I picked that number because I'm on your team. Like, so even if I'm not someone that you want to work with, I want to help you. I love to just help people to connect with who they're supposed to connect with. And so sometimes I'm a great referrer of like connecting folks. But I would say that that is one of those places and spaces that I just love to be in, to be able to connect with people and to help them to live their best life and to
Yeah.
to all good things.
Absolutely. And I can attest to that, just knowing you from when I stepped foot on St. Joseph College's campus in 2000. Yeah, 2000. Like it's now, right? Like we're still connected. And you were really a godsend for us African American women. I could speak for, my little crew, to see you there as staff, and you helped us. You helped us really navigate that experience. So thank you. And
Thank
and
you.
you are a connector, and it says a lot that from 2000 to now we're sitting here having this conversation. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And like it's just great even to thank you for saying that. It's really important for us to recognize, even as African American women, that we still are chasing it, chasing the dream and stepping into the dream. I think that position, I was the first African American to hold that position back then.
Mm.
And it's just interesting, even in my career, looking back now and just kind of seeing all the people that I've touched, but it just makes a difference to see yourself. So thank you for sharing that, because I think that that's also another part of me that's really important for us to recognize, our greatness and the Black girl magic that exists in all of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that, Wendy. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, let's get into the rapid fire before we
I'm
wrap
excited
things
for this
up.
rapid
Yeah.
fire now.
All right. Tell me the first thing that comes to your mind to answer the question or finish the statement. Wellness means
Taking care of yourself.
I know I'm stressed when.
I'm tired.
My go-to stress management modality is.
Massage.
One thing people get wrong about me is.
They think I'm serious. And I love a good laugh.
Yeah. What's your current vision?
My current vision is to expand my company and to do more work with people both here in the US and internationally. So that's really, I started to do it and it just feels good. So I just know that I'm supposed to keep on that path.
Nice. One thing I learned about myself during COVID is.
I love my house.
Yeah.
Like, I love this place. I'm never here. I'm like, so that's kind of been a post-COVID practice that I guess is self-care. Is just really, I did a lot of little projects and things in my home and just enjoyed it. But I also like noticed things that I wanted to change or update. But yeah, I definitely know that I love my house.
I love that. I love that. And what's one wish you have for our listeners as we end this episode? What's one thing you want them to walk away with?
I want them to walk away with the fact that it's important for us to define our personal vision. And it's also equally important for us to recognize that we may need to redefine that vision as life happens or as we continue to evolve and notice that there's things that we are more passionate about, that it's okay to repen your vision. you write it in ink, but you can always cross some things off and make some adjustments. And I think that that's the one piece that I hope that people take away from this conversation. Is one, that it's important to create vision, but to recognize that it's a work in progress.
I love that. Well, Diane, thank you so much for being here, and we'll have to have you back.
All right. Thank you so much. It's been great talking with you and being here.
You too.